All right, good morning and good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for taking the time out of your busy day to join us for today's webinar. Today's webinar is titled Nix the Network Drive, Capturing Content with Automated Naming Conventions and Indexing. My name is Andrew Albers, and I will be your host today. If you have any questions throughout the presentation, please post them in the chat box at any time, and I will make sure to take some time towards the end of the presentation to answer your questions. All right, so for today's agenda, it is the dreaded network drive. Specifically, we will first discuss the challenges organizations face utilizing the network drive. And we will follow that conversation up with the Laserfiche solution and show specific examples of how to alleviate the challenges that the network drive presents. One of the biggest challenges with the network drive is the limited naming convention enforcement and limited metadata capability. Essentially, users are able to name documents basically however they see fit with no regard for a set standard. Obviously, this can become an issue and often does very quickly. Additionally, users are often able to create their own folder structures within the network drive environment without necessarily following the organization's best practices. Additionally, without the ability to properly index documents with metadata, there is high potential for documents to be misfiled. And then obviously, in turn, a lot of these documents then become more difficult to search and locate at a later time for retrieval. Also, the lack of OCR, which is optical character recognition, plays an additional role with the metadata challenges within the network drive. Image files stored on the network drive do not contain OCR text. Therefore, users are not able to run full text searches when looking for documents. These are any keywords that they may want to look up. They may not know the document name. They may be looking for specific keywords within those documents, but without that OCR text, that is impossible. Lack of document version control is another common issue for network drives. This will often lead to duplicate or redundant documents. Also, without proper check-in and check-out functionality, users are able to modify documents simultaneously with disregard for proper version control. Additionally, without this proper version control, users may end up viewing and utilizing outdated documents that may no longer be relevant, whether it's policies or company procedures that they're following. We can obviously see how viewing an outdated document and utilizing it can pose high risk at an organization. Network drives also have limited security and document access rights controls, and the process to manage those is very inefficient. Network drives do not allow an administrator to easily secure folders and documents at a granular level. Therefore, due to the challenges that I've just described, network drives have high potential for losing or misfiling documents within that repository. Additionally, due to the lack of metadata and indexing within the network drive, searching is very inefficient and users often will be frustrated. I think we've all been there, especially with a large network drive. Trying to search that drive can be very frustrating, and often we will end up looking and feeling just like the person here in my little picture. I think we can all agree that the challenges of searching the network drive present themselves pretty apparently. Another challenge is the audit trail capability, as that is lacking in the network drive environment. Administrators do not have easy and efficient access into reports, specifically on user actions within the network drive environment. And finally, the network drive often lacks a mobile access into the repository. And obviously with today's mobile world, it is becoming more and more important to be able to access our documents and records essentially from anywhere, securely, efficiently, and safely. So with the Laserfiche mobile app, you're essentially able to access your documents while being remote, working away from the office, wherever you may be. As long as you have an internet connection, you can utilize the Laserfiche mobile app to access your documents and records within your Laserfiche repository. In addition to that, you're also able to start business processes from the Laserfiche mobile app, as well as approve any workflows that you're a part of as well. We'll be hosting a webinar later this year, specifically on the Laserfiche mobile app. So please keep an eye out for that. We'll be showing how the Laserfiche mobile app works. But with that, all that said, let's get into the Laserfiche solution. What I'm going to do now is essentially show you how we're going to alleviate these challenges that we just discussed. So what we're going to do first here is we're going to essentially import a document into our Laserfiche repository. Now with Laserfiche, the process of importing documents can be made more intelligent, where Laserfiche can dynamically process a document that's been imported into, in our case, this intake folder. What will happen is when we drag and drop a document into this intake folder, the Laserfiche workflow engine, being intelligent, being programmed to essentially process this document, can name this document correctly, therefore enforcing our naming convention, where the users are now following that naming convention because it's out of their hand. It's something that the Laserfiche system is doing behind the scenes for them, so enforcing that proper naming structure. Also, dynamically, Laserfiche is going to start building out our folder structure as well, dependent on what type of a record or document that we're importing into the system. So we're building in automation and intelligent processing of this document that's being imported. Additionally, we're also going to index this document. So what Laserfiche workflow is going to do, it's going to also dynamically assign a document template based on what document this is. So it's going to assign a document type to this document, and also it's going to populate our optical character recognition, our OCR, so it's going to make our document full text searchable. So with that being said here, let me show you how that works. So essentially, we're all familiar with this. This is essentially a document residing, whether it's stored locally on your machine or on a folder in a network drive. You'll notice this is a PDF document with a typical name that you would have, for a random document. This is how normally randomly documents are named on a network drive. So this is actually an audit report. So by dropping this into our hot folder here, the Laserfiche workflow is going to process this document behind the scenes, and it's going to dynamically name this document for us, build out our folder structure, and index it as well. So as this is processing here, let me go ahead and refresh our screen. So you'll notice that this document has moved on, and in our Next to Network Drive webinar folder, actually, let me refresh here. We'll see that an additional folder has just been created called audit. So essentially, the workflow engine has realized that this is an audit document. We don't have an audit folder yet, so it created our audit folder and started building out our additional folder structure depending on how we've decided to file our document. So for audits, we have the general audit folder, then we're going by year. So this is a 2022 audit, and then we're going structuring it by month. And then we have our document that's been filed away. You'll notice that it's been named correctly following our naming convention. So we'll notice that the name is the Office of the City Auditor and Clerk, which we're titling our audits with. And then we also have the date that's been populated into the document. So when we open this document up, we can also see additional metadata that's been populated for us by the Laserfiche workflow. So in this case, the documents template has been assigned dynamically to this document. And we'll also notice that the type of the document, it assigned the audit, because this is obviously an audit document. The additional field that got populated for us is the date that the audit was processed. So this has been dynamically created, therefore the user doesn't have to index this document themselves, making the process more efficient, following proper indexing procedures, naming conventions, and the folder structure has been dynamically created for us. This can also work with bulk imports. So if I were to drag and drop multiple files, it can be set up to work to process multiple file types, assigning the correct templates, correct document types, and additional fields that you may want to populate as part of that import as well. The additional item here is, you'll notice in the bottom right corner, is that the text extraction has happened. So our text has been stripped from this document that's been imported, which now allows us to search by any of these keywords appearing in this document that a user might search for at a later time. Now, if this document was also a record, for example, if you're using Laserfiche to manage the life cycle of your records, which you absolutely can with Laserfiche Records Management, the additional functionality that the workflow can perform is essentially file this record into a record series, dynamically apply the records retention schedule based on the type of record this is, and then start the records retention process. So dynamically, it can notify you of certain records retention periods being reached. So additionally, we can build functionality into your Laserfiche import process with records. All right, so additionally, we can archive emails into Laserfiche, and I've created a little emails folder here for us. What I'm going to show you is a simple drag and drop of an email from Outlook into Laserfiche, and the system is able to dynamically recognize that I'm dropping in an email, and it's able to index this email for us. So I will show you this here. Open up Outlook, and very simply take an email and drop it into our folder here. You'll notice here that the dynamic Laserfiche process is happening here. By that I mean that the template is correctly being assigned. So this is an email. So we have the email template assigned. But additionally, also the email metadata has now been pre-populated for us. So we have the sender, recipient, we have the date, and additional email metadata that we're choosing to archive into Laserfiche as well. So click OK here. And this document is now archived in Laserfiche. It's still an email. So if we open this back up, it's going to open back up in our Outlook client. So here's what that looks like here. But again, now we're archiving our emails. And this was a simple drag and drop process. We can also set this up with Laserfiche module called Import Agent to make this more automated. We can set this up to monitor your Exchange server, where we can dynamically monitor email folders and be able to bring in these emails into Laserfiche automatically for you. So definitely a customizable process there that we can set up. And I'm trying to answer a question here from Julie. I see Julie asked a question. Typically, how long does it take to set this up on the back end? I'm assuming you're referring to the process workflow for the drag and drop imports in Laserfiche. So that's going to depend on obviously the complexity of your indexing requirements. We definitely would need to scope that out with you, but it doesn't involve any custom programming or coding. Everything's done through the Laserfiche workflow engine. A lot of that stuff we've already built, so we can essentially just modify that process for your specific organization. So it shouldn't take a lot of time to set up, but again, it's going to depend on your specific indexing and folder structure generation requirements there. All right, so moving forward here, additional items I wanted to show you within the Laserfiche interface here is show you scanning. So obviously we can scan directly into Laserfiche. That's another functionality that's a benefit with Laserfiche compared to a network drive, is we can utilize Laserfiche scanning to scan documents directly into the Laserfiche repository. Specifically, we can scan into a hot folder again, such as our incoming folder, where the Laserfiche workflow can go ahead then process this document just as it would with that drag and drop process. So with our images, we're able to utilize our connected scanner devices, whether they're connected locally to our machine, as well as if it's a network device, we can go ahead and utilize the Laserfiche scanning interface to pull from a network device, which perhaps could be a multifunction copier printer. That's typically scanning into a network folder. We can have Laserfiche scanning pull from that network folder and process those documents through our interface, our Laserfiche scanning interface here. The benefit of using Laserfiche scanning is there's quite a bit of benefits as far as working with scans. Namely, we have image processing enhancements. So we're able to do such things as despeckling documents. So perhaps we're scanning in historic documents that may not be the best quality. We can go ahead and attempt to clean up those documents. We can smooth documents. We can auto-rotate documents if something's getting scanned, skewed or upside down. We can rotate it. Deskewing, again, just mentioned that if something, you're scanning in a stack of records documents, something in that stack is a bit skewed, the system will attempt to clean that up for you and straighten your document. So there's various image processing functionality here. That's what I'm trying to point out with Laserfiche scanning. You have a lot of flexibility for scanning your documents and records into the system. And then obviously you can also index these documents by utilizing the Laserfiche workflow engine. So, scanning into that hot folder and then having the Laserfiche workflow take off from there. So making it really easy for users to be able to just simply scan to a hot folder, not necessarily have to manually fill in our index fields and name our documents, have the workflow do that work for you, and therefore enforcing those proper naming conventions and the folder structures, and really just keeping your metadata processes tight with document records. With scanning, we also have additional Laserfiche modules where we can do additional processing on documents before it even gets into the Laserfiche repository and the workflow. We can do things for reading document zones, doing lookups into other databases to additionally help with making that indexing process a bit more automated. I think we'll do a follow-up webinar on Laserfiche quick fields, so we'll be able to show you how that works there. But I just wanted to point out, Laserfiche offers a very robust and flexible scanning capture engine that's built into the system. Whereas obviously with a network drive, you can't necessarily have an efficient way of scanning directly into the repository that way. Okay, so with version control, let me touch on that. We're able to utilize version control in our Laserfiche repository. So what I'll do here is I'll drag and drop a Word document into our Laserfiche repository. So this is a test document here. We'll drag and drop this in. I won't bother assigning a template to this. We're just namely concerned with version control here. And what we'll do here now, we'll just start tracking versions on this document here. So we're able to turn that on here and within the Laserfiche client. We can put in any comment. So let's just put in a comment here. We can assign a version label if we want to. Click OK. So now we're tracking versions. So this document now Laserfiche knows this is something that we want to track versions on. So now if I come in as a different user and I open this document, I can open it up. We'll open up in our Microsoft Word since this is a Word document. I'm able to add my changes to this document. And then when I go and exit this document out, the system will know that this is a new version. So it will prompt you to ask you what you would like to do with this new version. So you're simply able to select to save it as a new version. In our case, we'll do that here. So we can put an additional comment here. Assign an additional version label if we want to do that. So in Laserfiche now, what we'll have in our metadata is our version control. So our version control information here. So specifically, we can see how many versions of this document we have and what user created those versions. So we have this audit trail of versions on this Microsoft Word active document that we're storing in the Laserfiche repository. So this becomes very important if you have documents that you're collaborating on and they're being stored in the Laserfiche repository. You're able to enforce version control on those documents. You exactly know what's been changed by who and when. Additionally, you can also turn on check-in and checkouts. So this becomes important if you perhaps want to allow a user to check a document out, to take it home. Maybe they want to work on it for the weekend. By checking it out, that's going to enforce this document. It's going to lock this document in the Laserfiche repository. So while this is checked out, other users can go and work on this document simultaneously. So we're preventing users from being able to change documents simultaneously by enforcing check-in and check-outs. So we'll just put a little note here, took home for the weekend. So if anybody else comes here looking at this document, they'll know it's checked out. Click OK. Now we're opening this in Microsoft Word. We can save this to our desktop, work on this document, and it's essentially checked out by us. And then when we're done, we can go ahead and check this document back into the Laserfiche repository. But before I do that, here in our Laserfiche repository, we can go ahead and see there's a little pen symbol. It's kind of hard to see, but hopefully you see it over the Word icon here. And we can see that this document has been checked out by a user. So therefore, the additional user can't work on this document. So in our metadata here, we can see what the versions are. Additionally, when the user checks this document back in, an additional version then can be tracked in Laserfiche as being, completed by that edit. So here we'll check it back in. We'll exit out of this document, save to Laserfiche, and check it back in. And now this document is checked back into the Laserfiche repository. If we refresh here, we'll see that the pencil icon has disappeared now, and this document is now checked back in. Additional users can now check this document out if they need to. And in our metadata, we can also see that additional version that's been changed, or what's been changed on this document for this additional version. All right, so that's version control in Laserfiche. I hope you can see how important this can be when you're storing collaborative type documents in Laserfiche. Users are not able to overwrite documents simultaneously. We have audit trail of users working on these documents, when and what time, what are they doing, notes are being left. So we're enforcing proper versions of documents and within the Laserfiche environment. So again, this becomes important too for our searches, because we can run searches, we can see what documents are checked out. If documents are checked out, then we're aware of that. We're not able to check them out ourselves, but we can also then run searches on versions too, so we can see what versions of documents there are in our Laserfiche repository. All right, so the additional challenge that we discussed originally with the network drive is access rights, specifically to documents and folders. So Laserfiche has very granular access rights to documents and folders, and it's very simple to manage in the Laserfiche repository. I can simply right-click a folder and go down here to access rights, and I'm able to select access rights for this specific folder. So here I will see my trustees, which is either groups of users or specific users. We have various groups here. And under that group, you have the rights that are available to be modified for this specific folder. So again, here we have rights for browsing, for reading documents, seeking annotations, so we can allow and deny these rights. For adding documents, are we able to create new documents within this specific folder? Are we able to modify contents of this folder, rename documents, annotate documents? Deletions, so there's various options for deletions. For records management functions, we have additional rights that we can control based on our users. So this is access rights for this specific folder, but at a more granular level, we can select other access rights for subfolders. So for example, for this email subfolder, I can also right-click it, and I am presented with access rights to my subfolder here. So these access rights for the subfolder can be different than from the main folder that this folder is. So we have at a granular level, we're able to assign rights to that subfolder, at a more granular level, essentially, all the way down to the document level. So I'm able to go down to this email here, and I can also right-click this document here, and I'm able to assign rights to the specific document. So perhaps I only want a select group of users to be able to see this document. They can still access my email documents, but maybe this email has different levels of control, so I can enforce that here in my access rights all the way down to the document level. So essentially with Laserfiche, you have very flexible access rights on your documents and on your folders. Additionally, in our Laserfiche administration console, we have additional access rights and feature rights for our users. So I will quickly show you that here. So here we can go into the Everyone tab, and this essentially allows us to set up privileges and rights for everyone in our Laserfiche repository. So we can make everyone read-only, or we can give them read and write access here. And here are the privileges, which are broken down into features rights and privileges. So for features rights, we can control scanning, imports of documents, searching, printing, editing text, moving entries, which is moving documents, moving folders around, process for indexing documents, for deletions, for watermarking. So there is various granular controls that we can apply. This is at the everyone level in Laserfiche. Additionally, we can get more specific with users and groups. So we can have groups of users. Maybe we have an accounting group and a human resources group, and users in those groups have different rights. So the accounting group has different rights compared to an HR group. So we can enforce that here in our groups. And then additionally, at even a more granular level, we can get down to rights and privileges at the user level. So I can go ahead and select myself here in the system. I can assign as an administrator, I'm logged in as an administrator here, I can go ahead and assign different rights to my specific users. So I can take away their rights to maybe import documents. Maybe you want to limit printing for users, so you can go ahead and take that right away here. Under the privileges, maybe you don't want users to be managing their stamps, or more importantly, you may not want everyone to be able to create templates and fields. Just another way of enforcing that people are not just creating their own index structures in Laserfiche. So you can take this right away, this privilege away from your users. So very granular user controls in Laserfiche. This is absolutely something you cannot do with a network drive. This is where Laserfiche has a lot of value in managing these rights for your users, especially when you're concerned with security in your Laserfiche repository as well. You don't want users to be able to delete documents, move documents, change documents. You want to keep your documents secure in the Laserfiche repository. So with that, I will get into the audit trail, because we are able to track all of our actions in the Laserfiche repository. So this is, again, another benefit of using Laserfiche is you have auditing capability. What Laserfiche audit trail does is essentially monitor actions in Laserfiche being taken by users. So we have a simple interface here for running audit reports, where we have some pre-configured reports we're able to run. However, we can also generate our own reports. I will show you this deletions report we have here. So what this does, this lists all of the deletions that have happened in the Laserfiche repository. And you can see what user made this deletion here. So this information is available here for you. You can also see the path to what document or folder that might have been deleted. So this information is presented here. This can be sorted here so essentially, if we want to see all of our most recent deletions, we can go ahead and have that sorted this way. So we're seeing the latest information here. This report can be printed if you want to go ahead and do that. Alternatively, if you wanted to download this too, you can go ahead and download this report. This will export as an Excel file, and then you can have a report exported out of the system for further use. So this is for deletions. If we go back here, I can go ahead and show you a new report. So I can select various event types that I may be concerned with tracking here. So perhaps I want to, under my annotations event types here, I can go ahead and select create annotations. So I can see what user has created annotations in the system and when and at what time. So if I add that, I can go ahead and run this report. But furthermore, I can also select my users and my groups. So in my case, I'm just doing the everyone group in Laserfiche, but if I wanted to get more granular and just search Andrew, see what annotations he's created in Laserfiche, I can go ahead and search just by Andrew. We'll just do everyone. You can also narrow it down with a date range. So for example, here we have it set to just look at the last 7 days. However, we can get more granular and we can do like a custom date search. So if we maybe want to go back a couple months, we can go ahead and select that date in our drop-down calendar here and run this report for annotations that have been created. So we hit apply here, and we are presented with all of the annotations that were created by who, what annotate, and then what specific annotations were made here. That information is presented for you here in this report. Additionally, I'll just walk you through some of these other event types that we can track on. There's multiple options. There's administrative type audit trail capability we can monitor. So for example, who's assigning tags, who's changing their password. This is something Laserfiche administrator is going to be very concerned with, so you can track that here. Additional Administrative annotations for the audit trail configuration, we can track that here, as well as additional annotations here, such as modifying annotations, moving annotations to new pages. And I'm going to show you annotations in my next section here so you understand what those are. Under electronic data, we have additional annotating capability for managing our electronic documents in the system. Under entry rights or entry types for our audit trail, we have various options for example, who's checked in documents, checked out documents, who's copied versions, created a document. So for example, who's created a folder as well, so I can run a report on that. Maybe I'm concerned with who's created a document in my repository. So I can select that type, go ahead and hit apply here, run this search, and I'll get a report of everyone that's created documents within my Laserfiche repository. So again, with the audit trail, this is something that can become crucial as your repository, Laserfiche repository grows, as you expand, you add users to your system. You really want to keep track of what's happening in the Laserfiche repository for compliance reasons, but just for, as well as security reasons as well, and really just knowing what's happening and who's doing what in the Laserfiche repository. So audit trail, huge benefit of Laserfiche compared to just a generic network drive environment. All right, so I mentioned annotations a couple times, so I wanted to show you what that looks like. Also wanted to show you searching within Laserfiche, because that's another benefit of a document management system, is the efficient searching in Laserfiche. So we'll do that here really quickly here. So with Laserfiche searching, we're able to utilize a couple different ways of searching. We have a quick search interface here where we can simply tell the system what keywords we're looking for. We can make that more granular here though. In our quick search, we can tell it search text, which is the OCR text that's been extracted from documents. We can search entry names, which are document names. We can search fields, which are our index fields, and also our annotations. So here I'll just make a simple search. I will just search for the word Laserfiche. And you'll notice that this is quick to come up with our results here. And the system dynamically gives us our results. We can sort it by relevancy ranking here. So whatever the system thinks is most relevant to your search will come up first here. We can also turn on our document preview here. So we can get a preview of the document results. So as I click through these documents, in the right pane here, we'll get a preview of that document. Additionally, in our context hits here, we will see that our word that we're looking for, in this case, Laserfiche, it's highlighted in bold for us, and we can directly go from our context hits into the document. So for example, you'll notice here that the word Laserfiche is appearing multiple times, 20 times in this specific document. You'll notice the page number is also provided here, so you can open it directly from the context hits. And you open it up in the Laserfiche viewer. So the keyword that we were looking for is Laserfiche, and that's presented for us here. Every time it's appearing, it's highlighted for us. This opened up in our Laserfiche viewer here. And here's where we're able to show you those annotations that I referred to earlier. So we're able to put highlights onto documents. So this is important if users are typically used to working with documents as they would with a paper document. So they're able to apply their highlights. They're able to apply their redactions. Since I'm an admin user, I can see through a redaction. If I was a lower tiered user, I may not be allowed to see through a redaction. So this would just appear as a black box or as a white space. Additional annotation that's pretty popular is the sticky note, where you can essentially apply sticky notes to your electronic documents. So we can put hyperlinks in here. This is an overlay, as are any annotations. So we're not actually changing the actual image file. We're not changing the actual document. We're merely applying an overlay to this document. So when we go to export this document out, if we need to export it out of the system or print it for some reason, we can go ahead and do that with or without the annotations, depending on our credentials. In Laserfiche, we have multiple annotating options, so they're all essentially here under our annotations tab. There's quite a few of them. I won't go through all of these, but you know, some of the most popular ones is obviously the highlights, the redactions, the sticky notes. You have a myriad of annotating options within the Laserfiche client. All right, so that's that has covered searching. That has covered the Laserfiche viewer with the annotating capability. We discussed also security. We discussed version control, metadata, the OCR text, drag and dropping the email and making that process a bit more intelligent, as well as the import of our PDF from our network drive into Laserfiche with dynamic folder creation and folder structure creation as well. So with that, I think I've covered everything I wanted to touch on today. So what I'll do here is I'll pause for any additional questions, as well as put up some additional slides here with resources and contact info as well. So if you have any questions, please feel free to put them in the chat box. I'll pause here a bit and put up a couple of resource slides for you. So here's a link to our website, as well as the CDI YouTube channel link. The YouTube channel is another excellent resource for Laserfiche content. We're always adding new videos. All of our past webinars will get uploaded into our YouTube channel. There's a ton of videos on additional Laserfiche functions, because really today we just touched on kind of the tip of the iceberg with real robust document records management functionality in Laserfiche, but there is a whole other world of Laserfiche automations, business process automations, electronic forms, integrations with other products and platforms to make your entire business environment more efficient and more powerful to use. Again, we can definitely explore additional options of utilizing Laserfiche in your organization on top of just using it as a robust document and records management system. Here's my contact info. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me, as well as our respective departments within CDI. Their emails are here as well. So our consulting team, sales team, as well as our support team. Let me go to questions here. Looks like we have a question from Narcisco asking, are annotations possible on all file types or only TIFF? So within the Laserfiche viewer application, the annotations are going to be applicable to TIFF image files only. You can obviously store any file type in the Laserfiche repository, but the Laserfiche annotations are only possible with TIFF images. And looks like we don't have any other questions at this point. I'll pause. If there are additional questions, please feel free to put them in the chat box. And thank you very much for attending today's webinar. I'll still hang tight for a few minutes to see if there are any additional questions. But again, we do thank you for attending today's webinar. And feel free to sign up for additional webinars that are upcoming We'll be hosting quite a few more Laserfiche webinars to give you all good ideas on how to best leverage Laserfiche at your organization. So thanks again.